The sound of applause echoed through Windsor Castle, but for one man, it was the culmination of a journey that began far from royal palaces or aristocratic privilege. As King Charles III extended his hand and conferred the title of Sir, David Beckham bowed his head. A boy from East London, once mocked for his accent and his haircuts, now knighted by the King of England himself. It was a moment steeped in symbolism, bridging class, culture, and generations. The man who made millions cheer on football terraces now stood in one of Britain's oldest halls of ceremony, honored not for goals or glory, but for a lifetime of service, perseverance, and pride. Before we dive in, there's something I need to share with you. Over the past few days, thousands have watched these stories unfold, but most haven't subscribed. If you're one of them, I invite you now to join us. Subscribe to Crownverse so you never miss the next chapter in this unfolding royal history. It is perhaps one of the most anticipated honors in modern British public life. For years, the question of when, not if, David Beckham would receive a knighthood lingered over every honors list. There had been speculation, false starts, even controversy. But on the 4th of November 2025, that question was finally laid to rest. Inside the stone walls of Windsor Castle, beneath the soft autumn light filtering through historic glass, Beckham was knighted by King Charles III for his services to football and charity. In that instant, the boy who once trained on East End pitches under his father's watchful eye had joined the pantheon of Britain's most celebrated figures. The ceremony, understated but elegant, captured the new tone of royal investitures under Charles's reign, dignified, personal, and steeped in continuity. As Beckham stepped forward, dressed in a perfectly tailored suit designed by his wife, Victoria Beckham, the formality of the occasion seemed to melt into warmth. Cameras captured a brief, almost fatherly smile from the king as he spoke to Beckham, a man who in many ways embodies the evolution of modern British identity. Standing nearby, Victoria, along with Beckham's parents Sandra and David, watched with quiet pride. For them, it was more than a medal, it was a generational triumph. Beckham, now 50, has lived a life most would consider cinematic. He began as a teenage prodigy, breaking into Manchester United's first team in 1992, the beginning of what would become one of football's most storied careers. From Old Trafford to the Bernabeu, from LA to Paris, Beckham became more than an athlete. He was a global ambassador of English style and discipline, his name synonymous with precision and professionalism. Yet what set him apart was never just his free kicks or trophies, but his relentless ability to bridge divides between working-class roots and royal recognition, between sport and diplomacy, between the football pitch and the global stage. As King Charles tapped his sword on Beckham's shoulder, the moment carried echoes of something much larger than sport. In a nation often divided by class and culture, Beckham's knighthood symbolized a quiet unity, a rare point of agreement between establishment and everyday Britain. Here was a man who, though far removed from aristocratic lineage, had represented his country with a sense of pride that transcended social boundaries. In his own words, "People know how patriotic I am. I love my country." The honor came as part of the King's birthday honors list earlier in the year, marking Beckham's decades-long contribution to British society. But it was not simply for the goals scored or matches won. Much of the recognition lies in his work off the pitch, especially his humanitarian efforts. Since 2005, Beckham has served as UNICEF Goodwill Ambassador, focusing on children's health, education, and safety. A decade later, he established the Seven Fund, dedicated to protecting vulnerable children around the world. Those who have followed his journey note that Beckham has spent as much time in refugee camps and classrooms as he once did in stadiums. In many ways, Beckham's knighthood reflects the modern monarchy's evolving sense of purpose.
Under King Charles III, the royal honours system has increasingly shifted its focus from titles of birth to achievements of merit, a recalibration that mirrors Charles's desire for a more grounded, service-oriented crown. Beckham's investiture, then, was not just a personal triumph, it was a statement of values. In recognizing him, the king acknowledged a kind of national service that speaks directly to Britain's 21st century identity, one defined less by privilege and more by perseverance. There is a certain poetry in this alignment between king and knight. Both men, in their own ways, have navigated public scrutiny and personal evolution. Charles spent decades waiting in the shadow of his mother, reshaping his image from controversial prince to conscientious monarch. Beckham, too, endured ridicule and redemption, from the infamous 1998 red card against Argentina to the global adoration that followed his return as captain. Both understand the slow work of rebuilding public trust. Both have mastered the art of dignified endurance. Beckham's path to knighthood was not without delay. Earlier reports suggested he had been nominated but not approved, following leaked communications about alleged frustration with the honours process. The public's reaction was mixed, some citing past controversies, others insisting that his dedication to charity and national pride far outweighed his youthful missteps. In retrospect, the delay may have been fitting. Time has allowed Beckham's legacy to mature. His contributions to sport, philanthropy, and national identity now viewed through the long lens of history rather than the immediacy of fame. As the sword touched his shoulder, it was not the pop culture figure or global brand being honored, but the enduring ambassador of English grit and grace. "I cried when I first found out," Beckham admitted to reporters, describing the moment he received the letter informing him of the honor. "I grew up in a humble background in the East End of London, always wanting to be a professional footballer, and now I'm standing here at Windsor Castle with the King. It doesn't get much better." The scene outside Windsor reflected that emotion. Fans gathered beyond the gates, waving flags and shouting congratulations as Beckham emerged with his family. There was no grand parade, no fanfare, just a man, smiling modestly, holding the small red case containing his insignia of knighthood. For those watching, it was a reminder that sometimes national pride comes not from spectacle, but from sincerity. The significance of this honor extends beyond Beckham himself. It represents a changing relationship between the monarchy and the public, one that values lived experience, humility, and service over aristocratic birthright. The king's choice of honorees increasingly reflects the people's heroes, not just the establishment's. In Beckham's case, the investiture feels almost like a reconciliation, a long overdue recognition that the Britain of football terraces and working-class dreams is as integral to the nation's identity as its castles and crowns. Beckham's journey from Leytonstone to Windsor Castle encapsulates the evolution of modern Britain. His rise mirrors that of a country redefining success not through inheritance, but through effort, resilience, and contribution. His knighthood is a reminder that greatness can be earned, not bestowed, that the crown's reach now extends beyond the traditional corridors of power into the shared spaces of everyday pride. Yet beneath the celebration lies a deeper resonance, a question about legacy. What does this moment mean not just for Beckham, but for the monarchy itself? In choosing him, King Charles reaffirmed the idea that the institution must continually evolve, embracing figures who embody contemporary Britain.
Beckham's knighthood is, in essence, a bridge between tradition and modernity. A statement that the monarchy still has the power to unite, not by imposing reverence, but by recognizing merit. As Beckham's name is inscribed among the knights of the realm, the symbolism is unmistakable. This is not a story of privilege rewarded, but of effort acknowledged. A boy raised by a hairdresser and a kitchen fitter, once teased for his Cockney accent, now stands alongside statesmen and scholars. It is the democratic promise of the British honours system realized. Imperfect, but aspirational. And yet, the personal remains inseparable from the public. For Beckham, this moment is also one of redemption, a culmination of decades spent navigating fame's paradox, adored and scrutinized, celebrated and criticized. In his knighthood, he has achieved something few modern celebrities ever do: genuine respect across generations. His image, once commercial, now feels cultural. His knighthood cements him not just as a sportsman or a brand, but as a figure woven into the national narrative. The British monarchy, too, gains something from this moment. For King Charles, the act of knighting Beckham reinforces his broader message that the crown is not a museum piece, but a living institution capable of acknowledging the people's champions. It's a rare moment where both monarch and honoree reflect each other's journey. Two public figures who have weathered criticism, redefined relevance, and emerged with renewed purpose. In the days following the ceremony, images of Beckham kneeling before the king flooded the media. They were met not with cynicism, but with admiration. Across newspapers and social media, one phrase dominated the commentary: finally. It was as if the nation collectively exhaled, a shared recognition that some stories simply feel right when they reach their conclusion. But even as Beckham stood on those historic steps, smiling for the cameras, one could sense the humility that has defined his evolution. For all his fame, his empire, and his global reach, the essence of his story remains profoundly local. A boy who loved the game, who worked tirelessly, and who never forgot the flag he played under. His knighthood is not an ending, but a reaffirmation of what he has always represented: dedication, discipline, and devotion to the idea of Britain itself. In a time when public faith in institutions is fragile, this ceremony at Windsor served as a rare reminder of continuity, that honor, when earned honestly, still holds meaning. The crown, the country, and the common man converged in one gesture of mutual respect. The king recognized not just a footballer, but a legacy, and in doing so, reaffirmed that the British story, for all its divisions, still has room for unity. As the sun set over Windsor's ancient walls, the newly knighted Sir David Beckham departed quietly, his family by his side. No grand speech, no triumphant gesture, just gratitude. For him, it was not about the title, but the journey that led there. And perhaps in that modest exit lies the reason he was honored at all. In the end, knighthood does not define Beckham. It simply confirms what his nation has long known: that sometimes heroes do not come from palaces. They come from playgrounds, from council flats, from ordinary beginnings touched by extraordinary drive. The king's sword merely marked what the people had already decided: that David Beckham, in every sense, has always served his country. If you've enjoyed this deep dive into the story behind the crown's latest honor, don't forget to like this video and share your thoughts in the comments below. Do you believe David Beckham's knighthood represents the modernization of royal recognition, or the last link between old world ceremony and new world celebrity? Let us know what you think. And as always, subscribe to Crownverse, where royal history lives on.